Imagine a company valued at a staggering $47 billion dollars. A titan promising to revolutionize how we work, live, even how our children learn. Now, imagine that same company, just a few years later, is valued at a mere $44 million dollars. Not billions, but millions. What happened? And how did its charismatic founder walk away a billionaire, leaving a trail of shattered dreams and billions in losses? This is the story of ambition, illusion, and the spectacular collapse of WeWork. This is the story of WeWork, founded in 2010 by the magnetic Adam Neumann and the more reserved Miguel McKelvey. Their vision wasn't just office space. It was a community, a lifestyle, a movement. They offered sleek, modern offices, free coffee, happy hours, and the promise of connection for freelancers, startups, and even large corporations. Instead of long, rigid leases, you could get a desk for a month, an office for a year. It sounded simple, brilliant, and utterly irresistible. But beneath the polished surfaces and the endless kombucha taps, something far more precarious was brewing. Adam Neumann was a force of nature. He didn't just sell office space. He sold a dream, a conscious capitalism philosophy. Investors, especially SoftBank's visionary CEO, Masayoshi's son, were utterly captivated. Sun poured billions into WeWork, over $10 billion in total, fueling its meteoric rise. By 2013, WeWork was a unicorn valued at $1.6 billion. They expanded globally, setting up shop in London, then across continents. In early 2019, riding a wave of seemingly limitless capital, WeWork rebranded as the We Company, venturing into residential living with WeLive and even a private school, WeGrow, spearheaded by Adam's wife, Rebecca. At its peak in January 2019, the company was valued at an astonishing $47 billion. It seemed unstoppable, but was it too good to be true? At its heart, WeWork's business model was deceptively simple and ultimately fatally flawed. Imagine this. WeWork would sign massive, decade-long leases for entire office buildings. They were locking themselves into huge, fixed costs for 10, even 15 years. Then, they'd renovate these spaces with their signature trendy aesthetic and chop them up into smaller offices and desks. These smaller units were then rented out to members on flexible, short-term contracts, month to month, sometimes even hourly. This was the real estate arbitrage model. They hoped to make more from the short-term rentals than they paid for the long-term leases. But what happens when demand dips? When members leave, WeWork was still on the hook for those long-term, multi-billion-dollar rent payments, with no guarantee of income. It was like building a house of cards, constantly needing more wind to keep it standing. And that wind came in the form of investor cash, billions upon billions, masking the fundamental unprofitability. But even as the valuation soared, cracks began to show. Whispers of Adam Neumann's erratic behavior grew louder. He bought a $60 million private jet for the company, reportedly smoking weed on it. He was known to serve tequila shots to employees after discussing layoffs. His wife, Rebecca, infused the company with new age spirituality, with critics describing the IPO filing's language as like a novel written by someone who was shrooming. More alarmingly, Neumann blurred the lines between his personal wealth and the company's. He personally trademarked the word "we" and then sold the rights to his own company for $5.9 million. He owned buildings and then leased them back to WeWork, a blatant conflict of interest. And he structured the company with dual-class stock, giving him 20 times the voting power of ordinary shares, ensuring he maintained absolute control. The numbers also screamed for attention. In 2018 alone, WeWork lost nearly $1.9 billion. These weren't just warning signs, they were sirens. The reckoning arrived in August 2019 when WeWork publicly filed its S-1 prospectus for its much-anticipated IPO. This wasn't just a document. It was an X-ray, exposing the company's inner workings to the world. And what the world saw was shocking. Colossal losses, a fundamentally flawed business model, and corporate governance so riddled with conflicts of interest, it was almost unbelievable. The financial community recoiled. Investors who had been swept up in the dream suddenly saw the nightmare. The IPO was postponed. The backlash was so intense that by September 2019, Adam Neumann, the visionary king, was dethroned, forced to step down as CEO. SoftBank, the company's biggest backer, had to step in with a multi-billion-dollar rescue package, drastically slashing WeWork's valuation from $47 billion to a mere $7 to $8 billion. The illusion had shattered. While WeWork eventually went public in October 2021 via a SPAC merger, its valuation was a fraction of its former glory, $9 billion. The king was gone, but the kingdom was still crumbling. The collapse of WeWork wasn't just a story of numbers. It was a human tragedy. SoftBank, the titan who believed in Neumann's vision, faced cumulative losses of $14.4 billion, a staggering amount. But the impact rippled far beyond institutional investors. Think of Sarah, a former WeWork employee who joined in 2017. She was drawn by the vibrant culture, the promise of a better way to work, and the belief that her stock options would secure her future. She worked tirelessly, even convincing her parents to invest a portion of their retirement savings. But the S-1 filing, exposing Neumann's self-enrichment, felt like a profound betrayal. When the layoffs came, Sarah was among those let go. Her stock options, once a symbol of hope, became utterly worthless. Her parents' investment gone, the we she believed in, she realized was really just about him. Landlords, left with vacant spaces, faced lost income. Local communities lost flexible office options. And then, the final blow. In November 2023, WeWork filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. At that point, the company, once valued at $47 billion, was worth just $44.5 million. Adam Neumann, the man who steered it all, despite the company's spectacular failure, walked away with a $1.7 billion exit package, and by November 2023, his net worth stood at $2.2 billion. A stark, cruel contrast. WeWork eventually emerged from bankruptcy in mid-2024, shedding billions in debt and renegotiating leases, a leaner, humbler version of its former self. But the scars remain. The story of WeWork is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the seductive power of a charismatic vision, especially when unchecked by sound financial principles and corporate governance. It shows how easily billions can evaporate when a compelling narrative replaces a sustainable business model. The invisible king, Adam Neumann, built an empire on dreams, and for a time, made countless people believe. But when the dream turned to dust, it was the ordinary people, the employees, the smaller investors, who paid the heaviest price. What other grand visions, powered by ego and ambition, might be teetering on the brink right now? Join us next time on the Collapse Files as we uncover another shocking story of ambition, illusion, and ultimate collapse.